Welcome everyone to another episode of Inside Look, and today we're here to talk about the partnership with ASE. My name is Michael Alicea, and I am the CHRO of Trellix. And my guest here today is Patrica Mota, who's president and CEO of ASE. And rather than me have an opportunity to sort of describe what ASE is, since we've worked together for a few years, I certainly know what ASE is, and I'm super impressed. Maybe perhaps it would make sense, Patricia, for you to tell us a little bit about what ASE is and the resources you provide.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you. It's great to be here and great to engage in conversation with a great, I would consider a friend and just someone that's really looking at innovative ways to ensure that we're building inclusive, equitable workspaces. I've had the honor of being at ASUS since 2010, 7 of those years as president and CEO, and the organization has been around since 1982. Headquartered in Chicago, national in scope, and the mission since 1982 continues to be the mission we uphold today. Is how we deliver on that, as you may imagine, that has evolved over time. And that mission being to positively impact workplaces by cultivating the pipeline of Latino talent, providing our community the insight, access, and development to be successful in their careers. And so we carry that out through three core pillars of work. One is what the organization is traditionally known for, which is around talent acquisition. So programs, services, events where we're actively connecting intern, entry level to even as of late senior level talent to employment opportunities across corporate America, various industries. And the second pillar being what we consider our pipeline and leadership development programs. And so these are cohort model trainings that include coaching, mentorship, culturally relevant content that helps individuals get to that next level in their career or education. But most importantly, creating a strong multi-generational support network where we have folks more senior in their careers coming back as executive guest speakers, subject matter experts, mentors, and those in their careers doing the same for our students. And so the third and the final area is what we consider the thought leadership piece. So these are where we're featuring our partners, bringing them together to share best practices and really to network. So this is our diversity officer roundtable, our executive leadership tours, our ERG/BRG symposium, our national leadership summit. So various engagements throughout the year. And so we're doing a lot of great work, but most importantly, ensuring that we're making an impact with our partners across the nation.
So one of the things that really impresses me about you, and I see it in the ASE organization, is your incredible passion. And I know it comes from a deep place. And I'm wondering, as you thought about when and now this is a long time ago, but not too long ago, where you decided to take on the role as CEO. What was it that drove you to become CEO of this type of organization? Because, by the way, any company, regardless of the situation, would be super lucky to have someone like Patricia. So tell me a little bit about why you chose ASE.
Yeah, I think various reasons. One of them being that I had the privilege and the honor of really understanding my own purpose and my own mission, personal mission in this world for various reasons. But I lead with that, and I lead with paying it forward. I am proud of being Latina. I am proud of being Mexican American, proud of being the daughter of immigrants to this country. And I try to do the best that I can in terms of myself, but others, to try to justify the sacrifices that my parents have made for my siblings and I to have a better life, right? All of us being first generation, going to college, first generation going into these professional workspaces. And so that's part of my why is to pay it forward for them. And obviously, the next generation of leaders, including my 8 nieces and nephews that are really looking up for and thinking about what their futures are going to be. I also had an experience, and I talk about my personal purpose and mission going from low income community. I grew up predominantly low income community. Um, I would say Black and predominantly Mexican neighborhood. And my junior year of high school, I went to a more affluent community. And in this more affluent community, there was a couple of things. These were both public high schools in the United States of America, but they were not the same in the sense that the more affluent community, I had access to college recruiters from all over versus my original high school. It was predominantly the community college and the military that was recruiting. I was placed into AP physics, so the academic rigor was on a completely different level. I was meeting with my guidance counselor often to talk about my college to career plan. And these things weren't happening at my original high school. Not that the teachers and the institution didn't want to provide it. It's just lack of resources. And for me, that was my first eye-opening experience in terms of the education gap that a lot of our underserved communities are facing, just by nature of where they're growing up, by the socioeconomic status. And so I made it. I was aware then, and even more aware now in terms of some of the challenges as to not only why some of our students may not have access to college education or be able to obtain it, but then when you get into your careers or looking for meaningful careers, the other hurdles and challenges that present themselves. So that's a little bit in terms of why I've always this has been part of my career trajectory. And when the opportunity to become president and CEO of this organization, I see it as a responsibility to be able to make a greater impact.
That's great. I mean, I look forward to actually going to Chicago and maybe having dinner because I have a similar story in
Mm,
terms of sort of the way I grew up and the environment and going from lower middle class area to a more affluent community, and then going through the schools and how different it really was. So there's
yeah.
that's something I didn't know about you. So this would be a great conversation to have over dinner. Now, that leads me to another question, which is sort of what are the challenges that you think diverse candidates face in the hiring process that largely our homogenous cybersecurity industry may not be aware of?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. When we look at what we offer at ASA in terms of programs and services, yes, we're helping that individual, whether it's that college student, whether it's that professional looking to get promoted, or that individual looking for a career change, right? We're providing programs, the coaching, the development piece. The other factor is with the employer partners that we're working with, right? I think there is a huge need to accelerate the way that we're hiring, the way that we're promoting, and to innovate, right? How that's being done. Because a lot of the things that have been going on for several years, and even the CEO of Trellix mentioned, right? It's insanity. So that's the quite the same. The definition of insanity: doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results, right? So we're always telling our corporate partners, ensuring, are you going to Hispanic serving institutions, right? Which are predominantly Latino students that receive additional resources and funds to go to these institutions, and recruiting from there versus, let's say, Ivy, or focusing only on certain schools, right? It's how are you broadening your scope? And then the other piece is when you're looking at your hiring practices internally, right? There's some roles now, and cybersecurity being one of them, is like, does it really require a college degree to be able to get into the field? So how are we thinking innovatively to, and we're working on that together, right, through our partnership, to be able to say we're going to
Yeah.
help individuals get into this field, train them, and that's the future of how work is and how things are. And so I think is access in terms of on the ground in our communities. It's similar to my own personal example, is lack of access to resources, to visible role models, to programs that help you understand that a job, a career, is not just being a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher, right? It's like really creating that awareness to our communities, especially when it's the first generation going into a workforce that's not what we know from our parents or grandparents, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to describe it in the sense that for us, it's super important. In fact, one of the first things I did is took a look at sort of the job tracks in our
Mm,
organization. And quite frankly, many of the roles that we have open, are roles that you don't really need a 4-year degree in.
Mhm.
You don't need to come necessarily from prior cybersecurity organizations. The other thing that I saw, and you can see this on LinkedIn, and all of you that are viewing this can also see it on LinkedIn, especially in our industry, in the tech industry and cybersecurity, that it's the same people that are going from one company to another
Yeah.
company. They hire from us, we hire from them. And so we're not actually getting new perspectives.
Yeah.
We're actually not getting new energy into the organization. So we've got to figure out ways to sort of instead of fishing more broadly in the same pond,
Yeah.
let's make it a lake,
Yeah.
right? Let's make it a lake. Let's make it an ocean. And
Yeah.
that's in fact that's one of the reasons I reached out to you originally, to sort of start talking about how we can work together, because we needed a little bit of a jump start and help, and how do we think about it. And quite frankly, ASE is a perfect venue for us and a perfect partner to kind of sort this out. The other thing that was kind of interesting is you talk about this concept of purpose. You know,
Yeah.
we talk about soulful work, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. I'll ask you a couple of questions on that.
Mm.
But people are looking for purpose in their work. It's not just about a job,
Yeah.
and especially for Hispanics. I will tell you, growing up, the two biggest things that my dad would always tell me is try to get a job, go into the military, or go into a job where you could take a test and move up the ranks. A policeman, a fireman, a postman, something like that, where they were stable jobs. You weren't going to lose
Yeah.
your job, right? They don't have layoffs, and your effort is what's going to move you forward,
Yeah.
because we didn't have networks. I didn't have people to look up to and say, "Oh, Uncle Jose works at Boeing,
Yeah.
or Hewlett Packard," or that wasn't sort of in the cards for me. And so it did take a little bit of effort, and it did take mentorship and others to help me get there. So
Yeah.
with that in mind, amid this concept of the great resignation or the great reshuffle, however way you want to describe it, do you see more ASE members pushing for career opportunities that provide that purpose? If so, if you can share some of those first person accounts, it would be great.
Absolutely. Michael, I love what you shared about your personal story because it really highlighted two strong core values that traditionally Latino communities embody, which is stability, because, in terms of growing up, or perhaps our families, were working various jobs, or there was, some financial challenges at home. And so it was always reinforced in me as well, as like, get yourself a stable job. Or if I was moving jobs, like, what are you doing? You're rocking the boat. You're like, being grateful.
Why are you
And then
taking a chance?
I know, like, what are you doing? Like, you have a stable job. Like, why are you changing it? Um, which is a beautiful value to have, but sometimes we need to know how to, as we're progressing in our career in this dual ambicultural, environments that we find ourselves in, is how do we adjust, right, and find the fine balance. And then the second one that you said is about working hard, right, keeping your head down, making sure your work speaks for itself. And in today's workforce, generally speaking, you have to toot your own horn, and that's what we're doing a lot with our folks that are going in our programs, is how do we leverage that beautiful value of humility and working hard, but also ensure when knowing when is it that we need to assert and advocate for ourselves, right? And
Yeah,
and sometimes if we have folks in workplaces, especially in today's day and age, that are not seeing their core values represented, which align with their own purpose, they are looking for what's next, or what's an opportunity that I can do. A couple of examples: we've had folks that have really explored their entrepreneur ventures, right? One, for example, is Ase for the first time work with influencers, social media influencers, who have left their full time jobs, and all they're doing is working with organizations, and they're being able to promote things that they're passionate about. One example is, Gigi, the first gen mentor, and all she does is talk about financial literacy. And that's, now she's living in her purpose, and she speaks to that. The other way is folks within organizations that perhaps they're looking for, how do I, give back with my job here. So they're getting involved in the community or ERG, BRG, employee resource groups. And if they don't have them yet, really getting them started and launching those efforts within their organization. And some people are just taking a pause. They're saying we're resigning, and I'm gonna take a year off and really figure out, like, get into a job that aligns with my purpose, that I feel that aligns with my values. And so we've seen those three instances quite a bit. And it aligns with ASUS theme for the year, which is Hace Más, meaning Hace Más for your career, doing more for leading and leadership roles, and doing more for Latino talent. And so we're also holding our employer partners accountable in terms of how are you ensuring that you're instilling purpose for work for your employees. And here are some ways that you can go about that. And so we've seen a lot right around this, and I think it's important that your employees know why and what the meaning is behind the work that they're doing within your organization. Because especially, I tell our employer partners, especially Gen Z, they are coming in and coming out faster than any other generation into the workplaces. And if they don't latch
Yeah.
on to that purpose right away, this is a growing workforce of ours, and then it's going to be a challenge for our businesses and for employers.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's kind of interesting because we have this concept of soulful work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Work that fills you with more than just a job. It's a career. It's a
Yeah,
mission. It's purpose driven,
yeah,
and for us, we are in many ways one of the last lines of defense, protecting people from really bad things, from people trying to steal their bank accounts, from bad actors, infecting their hospital systems, their water systems, and there is a purpose to this that's greater than the individual, and so with that, every one of us has to figure out what that soulful
yeah.
work is. And so I would wonder, so what does soulful work mean to you when you think about that concept of soulful work?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the work that I get to lead at ASA, and in this capacity, and really, for as many graduations of cohorts that we've had, or career shifts that we've had, and the stories that come, it's that feeling of fulfillment of seeing the impact of the work that we get to do that has a ripple effect, right? One example is we just graduated. Three cohorts of our Mujeres de ASE, which is our Latina leadership program. And as I'm hearing some of the testimonials, you have someone share, I always identified, in the workplace as American, but for the first time I said I'm Mexican American. And there was a shift. I truly believe that the only way that you become an influential leader is that you lead authentically. And part of leading authentically is with who you are, bringing your whole self to work. And the fact that we can do that with our programs, and they're going back into organizations and getting promoted and being visible, and getting bigger projects, is soulful work for me. But especially when those individuals, like yourself, Michael, are paying it forward, and not only because being a true leader is not only advancing in your own career, taking greater responsibilities, but understanding the responsibility that we each have to pay it forward, whether it's mentoring others, whether it's developing programs or initiatives to help others. And so I think that I've been fortunate to be able to lead with purpose and mission, and now people are looking for that more than ever. And the fact, the way you all describe what cybersecurity, what Trellix is doing, which is powerful, the more that folks can hear that story, I think it would resonate more than ever, especially with, I know I talk a lot about Generation Z because that's what they're looking for, right? And I always tell our corporate
Yes.
partners, we're not accelerating fast enough to keep up with the expectations, which are, I want to feel like I am doing mission forward, work here. And that's what I see you all are doing.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that, Patricia. We're working hard in that sense. And look, there are some demographics here. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way in my career I could have achieved what I achieved if I didn't have an ally somewhere
Mm-hmm.
along the way, or a mentor somewhere along the way that wasn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
right? That, in this industry,
For
we
sure.
are predominantly white middle-aged men, the preponderance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in our organization, our cultural values sort of value the concept of your authentic self and
Mm-hmm.
being yourself. But sometimes the best things that we do are things that not only are the right things to do because they are the right things to do, but it's also because it's the right business thing
Yeah.
to do, right? And in our world, you know, we have to represent the communities we're protecting and the clients we're serving and the governments we're protecting, right? And so if you think about it in those terms, when we go sell a client, we have to look like them. We have to understand them. We have to bring a holistic answer. And
Yeah.
sometimes if you're a white middle-aged man, you're going to approach it one way that you've seen it work before, but we're not looking for necessarily the optimum solutions, and bringing others from other cultures, whether it be Hispanic or African
Mm-hmm.
American, LGBTQ, actually gives you a better opportunity to really serve those clients in a holistic way and at the same time enriching our culture. It is something that I'm passionate about. And
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, we've talked about this. I'm here because I know I get an opportunity to do that. So that is what soulful work means to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opening the aperture, making a pond a lake, making that lake an ocean, and being able to really drive a change in our industry. And the other piece of it is I know that my competitors don't even acknowledge this. And I'm going to bring them onto a playing field that they cannot compete on. Right? I'm going to win. We're going to win because we do that, right? And so that's the
Mm-hmm.
exciting thing about what we do. And the value that mentorship brings is critical, right? That allyship. And I guess the next question I would ask you, or the thing that I'm curious about, is how would you describe the value that mentorship has on that young professional, and individuals that are going through that mid-career transition?
Yeah, I mean, you've alluded to this, right? You've talked about this. I think one of the key things, and it's the Center for Talent Innovation that they published. They surveyed about 2,000 Latino professionals, and 76% mentioned repressing some part of their persona in the workplace, meaning how they prefer perhaps that their name is pronounced, meaning talking about their culture, talking about their background, hair, styles, things like that. And that's preventing not only advancement opportunities and things like that within the workplace, but also when you look at the demographics across corporate America, only 4% of Latinos, Hispanics are in executive level roles, and so there's a need for us to be able to see ourselves represented, right? You can't be what you can't see. And so that's part of the challenge. And so with our programs, we incorporate mentorship, meaning not only pairing folks with folks that they can identify with, but also allies that are coming into the fold and really being true allies, right? In terms of advocating and supporting individuals get to the next level. And so I am a product of having various mentors throughout my career as well, and know the value of that, and being able to have someone that you trust, that you can ask those scary questions, right? Like how do I prepare for this meeting, or what's the right, is it make sense for me to approach this individual in this way? Should I send an email? Should I do a phone call? Like all of those little intricacies that sometimes you're just not sure about, how powerful it is to have a mentor that you trust to be able to lean into. I don't think that because you have a certain title or certain credentials that we all know that you've achieved everything. You don't need to learn anything else. We're all constantly learning, right? And I think a mentor helps really with that as well.
Well, for me, I will tell you, like, even my name. So it's Alicea or Alicia. Half my family uses Alicia, half my family uses Alicea, and I don't have a distinction around it other than to say, I want you to call me whatever you feel comfortable with, but I'm never gonna hide where I come from. I'm never
Sure.
gonna hide sort of my background. And sometimes having that understanding is really uncomfortable for people,
Mm.
right? They don't know how to react or how to engage in that respect. And so I really am proud of the work that Ase does, because I've had an opportunity to talk to some of these folks. I always want to say kids. Everybody feels like a kid to me. You know what I mean? But 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 in this case, it's so refreshing to hear what they get out of it. And I guess, you've heard stories directly from ASE members, and how would you describe the value membership has on young professionals? Or, you know what, let's start from
Yeah,
the
well,
last question.
on the mentorship piece, if I just wanted to add, like, because one of the perfect examples that we have is our national board chair, Olga Camargo. She's currently a partner in investment and fiduciary, and she talks about her story with ASE, where as a college student, she met her first mentor through ASE. She received a scholarship through ASE. She then went, fast forward, was involved with the organization, also met her current business partner through ASE, also participated in the Mujeres de ASE program, and is now serving as our national board chair. And so that's just a perfect example of the power of mentorship, but also and how we've been able to enable that and unleash the power of mentorship through ASE, um, to help individuals throughout the pipeline of their career, right? And advancing. Um, I think, the other piece in terms of what organizations can do to build a more inclusive workforce, because part of the challenge, of course, especially in high demand fields such as cybersecurity, is getting the diverse talent in, right? And then the other challenge is making sure once they're in the door, how are you engaging, retaining,
Yeah.
developing them? And that's one of the most challenging pieces, because when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, it shouldn't just be the head of HR. It shouldn't just be the chief diversity officer. It needs to be organizational wide, that it's a responsibility to ensure that everyone is pushing DEI. And so a couple of ways is, one is making sure that how are you building safe spaces and making sure you're connecting that incoming individual to a group of trusted individuals that could be their mentors right away, right? Some examples of that are employee resource groups, and making sure that those that they would identify with or feel comfortable with, that they're connected right away. During meetings and things, if you have employees that are not speaking up as much or not comfortable doing one-on-ones, and it's about equity, right? Meeting individuals where they are, ensuring they have the right tools, resources, opportunities to be feel supported, and to continue to feel engaged and advance within their careers. And I'd be remiss too, I know we talk a lot about allyship and the need to ensure that everyone across the organization, from leaders, are being supportive of diverse communities, visibly supportive, and mean it, right? And ensuring that whether they're participating during Hispanic Heritage Month or throughout the month, different celebrations, and really advocating for diverse communities within the organization and throughout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect way to sum it up, right? The concept of it takes a village. It's
Yeah.
it's not just, right. It's not just the individual within ASE. It's not just the mentor. It's the company. It's, once you're in the company, how do you support them? I've always talked about the quietest voice in a room,
Mm-hmm.
and how can we amplify that voice, right? And bring everyone onto the playing field,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you really, I think that's how you really win. Win both from a soulful perspective and mission and purpose, but also from a business perspective. Those that bring the best solutions oftentimes are the ones that win. And so that's what we want to do. Well, look, Patricia, it's been so fantastic to talk to you today. I'm really happy about our partnership, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes that we'll get from it. I also, in understanding our launching of new ERGs
Yeah.
within Trellix, would love to invite you back to talk to our ERGs as we launch them.
Would love to, Michael. Thank you for this conversation. I look forward to having that dinner and talking more, Michael.
That's very good. There's plenty of great restaurants in
Yeah.
Chicago. I'm excited to sit down and have a meal with you. Anyway, Patricia, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and thank you for all of you out there that are looking at this. Please go out to our website at either Trellix or ASE. Get to know more. Get involved. We need you. Thank you, and have a great day. Take care.